Pratya Das. I am the co-founder and director of Haslo Consultancy Private Limited, which is a healthcare consultancy firm based in Delhi, India. I have with me Dr. Shilpa Mutkal, who has, she's joining us from Singapore. She has over 14 years of experience as a medical communicator, and she's worked, currently she is the medical lead Asia for InVivo Communications. She's worked as a consultant medical writer, and then she's worked with different medical communication agencies at UK and at Singapore currently. Also with me is Pooja Banerjee. Pooja is a medical communicator who's worked for around 15 years. She's done bench research and then moved from bench research into documentation and then into medical communications. She has worked with different institutes and agencies. She's worked with Public Health Foundation of India and currently is the technical lead medical writing for IJCP Publications, which is based in Delhi, India. Welcome, both of you. You are muted. Both of you are muted.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pooja and Shilpa. Though we will try to keep it a very interactive session, but initially we will have a short panel discussion where the three of us discuss about our lives as medical communicators, and then we'll open the floor for questions, and you can either put in your questions in the chat box or raise your hand and we'll invite you to ask the question. Right. So before we start off, Pooja, maybe you would want to tell us broadly what is medical communications.
Right. Thank you so much for starting this initiative. This is very good because I get a lot of calls wherein people ask me, how is your work life? If I switch from my present job to being a medical communicator, how am I going to be affected? What does a medical communications agency do? So in a nutshell, if I have to summarize, I would say that a medical communicator is somebody who puts across the right information or right data at the right time to the right people through right people, so that the message resonates across the group of peers as well as to the patients. Now, I have been a part of medical communication agency, which provides services for the entire spectrum of medical communication services. What do we do? So, if I have to explain what a medical communications agency does, it would basically be we are basically the outsource partners for pharmaceutical companies or biotech or device companies who would try to get us in for our consultative as well as tactical support in developing programs, campaigns, or core programming for putting out information or data about their therapy areas or their products or the recent research updates that they have done. So in a stepwise manner, the very first thing that we would do is strategy planning and development. So we would conduct a landscape assessment, an in-depth landscape assessment, just to understand what the therapy area is all about. And then from that assessment, we will get insights. Based on that insight, we will suggest that these are the things that the medical communicator or the pharma can do to, attract the consumer base to itself. And then one of the very important aspects of this is publication planning, development, and submission. We all understand what publication planning is and why is it important. The studies conducted by the pharma itself or to evidence in form of reviews, case reports, opinion letters, etc. Then as a medical communicator, I would engage experts and manage them, because it is very important that an expert, a clinician says or is convinced about your therapy, about your product, and talks about it so that the peers are convinced about it. So that is building relationship with the experts and engaging them for different things. That is what we do. Then medical education. So it is, I don't think I have to say that it is very important for the clinicians to keep up to date with the state of the art and the updates and recent happenings. So that is how where these continuing medical education programs come in. We develop scripts for them, we develop modules, whether it's live, virtual, offline, in the form of videos, in the form of individual isolated CMEs or as science congresses. And then we also developed something called internal communications, which would be training materials for the pharmaceutical team itself, so that they are all on the same page and they know then when they are communicating to the outside world exactly what is it that they have to communicate. And then we come to patient education material. And also event management is a very important aspect of medical communicators life. We plan events like science congresses, ad board meetings, individual meetings, create the content for those meetings, provide
Yes.
them scientific backup. So in a nutshell, if I hope I have not missed out any of the important things that we do, but this is basically what we do as a medical communications agency and as a scientific expert in a medical communications agency.
Thanks, Pooja. Maybe Shilpa, you could add a little more to it. Anything else that we also do as medical communicators?
Well, I think Pooja has been very, very comprehensive. She's covered the entire gamut of services that a full service agency would usually provide. There are niche agencies as well, which don't provide all the services, but yes, primarily a full service agency would be involved in providing medical writing support, strategic planning and support, key opinion leader engagement and management, medical education, event management, publication planning. So ultimately, it's all about providing support to healthcare companies, which are primarily pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, and device companies, in gathering, organizing, analyzing, and presenting information, which is usually complex. So working with information and catering it to a specific target audience is what we do across the life cycle of a product, which could range from pre-launch to post-marketing. So yes, that's what a full service medical communications agency does. That was really put, Pooja.
Yeah. So thank you, Shilpa. So I'm just sharing a few slides here. I hope my screen is visible. Now,
Yes.
Both of you have covered almost everything that we do. Now, before we go on with the program, I must mention here that everything that we are talking about here and any views that we are expressing here is our personal view. We do not reflect. These views do not reflect the views of the organizations we work for, and none of the images used in this presentation are ours. All of those have been sourced from the internet, and we do not hold any copyrights for any of these images. Right. So both of you have already talked about the different kinds of things we do. Like basically, if I had to say what do medical communicators do, I would say they communicate information about health and wellness, disease and drugs and devices that a healthcare institute may be using, or a healthcare provider may be using, or a patient may be using, all those to the right target audience in a timely manner and in the format that is apt for the audience. Now, we start with maybe even writing a grant proposal before the research for the product starts. So writing a grant proposal to writing all the regulatory documents for the research, any compliances or documents which have to be fulfilled. Then once the results of the document of the research come in, we also prepare abstracts and posters and presentations for the conferences where the key opinion leaders go and present these information. We prepare articles which are published in different medical journals. We also help them write chapters of textbooks. Sometimes we do not write the chapters. The chapters are written by the authors themselves, and we help to review and edit and format those chapters. Then we also help them to write, disease and drug booklets or handbooks, which are used by the healthcare professionals as well as by the, patients. Then we also write policy documents, which help in preparing health policies of a nation. Guideline documents for associations. Different associations have different clinical guidelines. We help prepare those guideline documents. Then there is a lot of information that we put into the public also. When I say public, I mean people who are neither doctors nor patients. But when we put out these information, these are in the form of newspaper articles or magazine articles, or these could be even as short booklets for wellness, where preventive health is an important thing. Then we also prepare for marketing purposes. We prepare marketing documents which the sales team goes and presents before the doctors, and we prepare product monographs, product labels for different drugs. So not everybody does everything. Even within an organization that does everything, they have different employees who do different kinds of things. Then this is a screenshot from e-newsletter that I could get into my email box every morning. We prepare websites for doctors, for hospitals. We also write blogs for doctors, for hospitals, for NGOs. Then we prepare videos. We manage social media information put out by those hospitals or doctors or pharma companies also. We do CME presentations, a lot of multimedia activities which go into CDs. Earlier, even when floppies were available, we used to prepare those presentations for doctors, videos and all for them in floppies. But now we don't even use CDs these days. It's all on the internet, on the cloud now.
Cloud.
Yeah. So everything is on the cloud. So these are the things that we prepare. Other than that, like Pooja has mentioned, medical communicators don't just write and review and edit. They also plan the communication, how it has to go out to the public or to the stakeholders. So they help in developing the market for a product. They help in developing the key opinion leaders who would be the people who will put out the information in the public. Then we also are engaged in training other medical communicators, getting them ready for the next project. And there is a creative team also involved in the medical communications team, which helps in preparing infographics and videos and stuff like that. So basically, it's a lot of things that medical communicators do, and yet you can specialize in medical communication, in different fields of medical communication. Even within different organizations, there are therapeutic area specialists in medical communication. Somebody may be a medical communicator in the oncology field, while another person may be a medical communicator in the endocrinology field. So that is also there. So that's about it. Maybe Shilpa, you could probably talk about a little more about who are the the clients that the medical communication agencies work for mostly.
So the clients, there could be two categories of clients, external and internal. Internally, when we work with healthcare companies, our clients would be medical teams, commercial teams working in pharmaceutical companies or health or biotech companies, and medical science liaisons, sales reps. These would be their internal clients. Maybe we're working on a project for them or developing materials for their consumption, such as training materials, training products, training modules. Then we have external clients who could be specialists, specialist doctors, and primary care physicians, nurses, allied health professionals, payers and regulators, and patients, of course. So I think I've covered most of our clients.
Yeah.
Anything
else that Pooja you want to include?
No, I think that would sum it up in terms of the clients that we work with.
Yeah. So, many people do ask, who do you work for? Do doctors really require so much of writing? yeah, doctors require a lot of writing material, but it's
Yes, I think recently I worked with, a specialist from Thailand who was involved in primary research. I mean, she had a lot of her patient data which she wanted to organize and present in a journal. But there are language issues, there are issues with structuring it, what kind of analysis to do and how to present the data, how to frame the discussion. Plus, that's just the writing aspect of it. And then there is how to find the right journal, how to submit the submission process. There are lots of nitty-gritty involved in submitting. And often doctors are pressed for time. So it's not just the logistics of it, but the time, the content, and all of that. So there, the client was actually the doctor working in a tertiary care hospital in Thailand. So yes, they do need help, and they appreciate it too.
Yeah, talking about doctors who have an issue with writing in English. I've also had a client, who was from from one of the European countries, and every year she would contact me for preparing her slides for international conferences. So that is there. Yeah, we do that also for doctors, and these are individual doctors.
Yes.
Yeah, so we do that for individual doctors also. Okay, so what would be one of the most interesting type of project that you've done, Pooja?
Okay, so I think the most interesting thing that I have done, we collaborated with a US based agency, and we were developing CME modules on contraception for healthcare practitioners as well as for patients. And it comprised right from assessing the needs in awareness, a knowledge gap assessment, conducting that, and then moving on to develop the modules, then working on those modules with the experts. We engaged some experts also. And then I was also involved in the training. So I used to travel to medical colleges, nursing colleges, and schools and other places where we could, find general public as well as, and I conducted their trainings on the awareness. And then based on those trainings, we also had to assess what was the impact of this entire activity. So it involved so many things, and I could use so many skills, that this was one project that I really find close to my heart, and I actually loved working on it. Anyway, in the life of a medical communicator, each day is different. Each quarter of a day is different. Morning you're working on some therapy area, evening you're working on something else. So but yes, this was very interesting project that I did.
Yeah, how about you, Shilpa? What was the most interesting project that you did?
Well, there are several projects that come to mind, and I think it's interesting to see, and it's fulfilling to see the outcome of a project. I mean, the outcome of all the efforts that you've put in, to see it actually play out, that is really, really fulfilling. So like Pooja mentioned, there was this, we won a grant from one of the big pharmas to run a CME program on I have to be careful about not disclosing.
Yes, that's right.
To run a CME program for a particular therapy area. So we, starting from designing the program, engaging the doctors, the specialists who would be involved in designing the program with us, supporting them with the literature search, giving them ideas on how to frame the agenda, briefing them on what they need to present, to actually organizing the webinar, which was a live webinar with 400 global participants, specialists, and then managing the Q&A session, and then also assessing the outcomes in terms of the pre-assessment surveys and the post webinar surveys, assessing the change in behavior, the change in their knowledge, competence, and performance. To see that the learning process actually worked, and all the efforts that we put in to develop this training program actually resulted in a change in their practice. That was really, really fulfilling, and it makes you feel that it's a good job.
So we were talking about this different skills you need to, possess. You have to be a multitasker, first of all, right? To be a good medical communicator, you have to be a multitasker. Every quarter of the day, like Pooja mentioned, would be different because you'll be working on a different project in the morning and maybe different project by the time it's time to leave. So now, Pooja, why don't you tell us about the educational background of medical communicators? What is the minimum qualification required?
All right. So there is no set route to enter medical communications profession as such. For instance, I have a master's degree in pharmaceutical chemistry, and I was into academics and then into research, then into public health communications, and from there I landed into medical communications, and I realized that okay, this is what I want to do. However, even though I would say that a degree in science or medicine or pharmacy or nursing or alternative medicine is preferred, it is not restricted to such degrees. People can, if they are curious enough to learn, they can always enter the field of medical communication with good writing and communication skills, because with each project they learn. And even I wouldn't say that anybody would be knowing all the therapy areas, before starting to work on it. So they learn on the project, and so there is no particular degree. You can always, the best thing is on the job training and learning through feedbacks. If you do not take feedbacks personally, and constructive criticism is something that you can work upon, you will develop skills which would be sought after in the medical communications world. So I think these are the ways you can learn, and through the course of your working life, or even just before you start to work as a medical communicator, you can do, there are many courses available just to get an idea as to what medical communications is about. You can always do those courses. There are a lot of courses on Coursera. There are certain agencies and
we'll come to the courses, Pooja.
Sure.
I think we'll take Shilpa's take on the educational qualifications and what her journey has been like. You told us about how you went from doing
academics
research to academics,
yes,
to moving to communications. So Shilpa, why don't you tell us about yourself?
So I'll take the question on qualifications.
Yeah.
So my answer would be slightly different from Pooja's. I mean, resonating with her, but slightly different. So talking about a pure medcoms agency work, there are three different teams. There's an editorial team, there's an account management team, and there's a project management team. So working in an editorial team as a medical writer, I would say a science background is essential. In my 15 years of experience, I haven't seen a successful medical writer with a non-science background. There is a minimum level of understanding that is required to be able to process the information and present it knowledgeably. So to be a medical writer per se, to be in the editorial part of the business, I think a science background is essential. It could be a BSc in biology,
right,
or pharmacy or biochemistry. You could be a doctor. You could have done lab research. So alternative medicine.
How about someone? Sorry for interrupting. How about someone who's not had a degree in the life sciences? Will that help?
Yes. So like I said, there are three branches that you could go into in a medcoms agency per se. So that's the editorial side of the business, where I think a science background is essential. Then there is somebody, you could be a project manager. The project management team is actually managing the project. So you don't need a science background. You need to be able to organize all the different timelines, the deadlines, the projects, the clients, all of that, the client liaison bit. You need to be able to do that. So for this, a science background is not essential. It may be preferable because it helps you understand what your writers are doing, because you are the bridge between the writer and the client. So it is helpful to understand what's being done, but it's not essential. As long as you have wonderful, you think you can organize and you can work with multiple projects at the same time, keep to time, keep to timeline, keep to the deadline, that's great. And you have good communication skills. So that is also medical communications. And then the third division is account management, where you definitely don't need a science degree. You need to be, you could be selling, you could be a business development person, you could be managing the account for the client and for your company. So I would say science, like I said, science degree definitely essential for being a core medical writer, and then not really for account management and for project management.
My question was a little different, Shilpa. I was actually asking you about, not having a degree in the life sciences. Does that hamper? I mean, you have a degree in BSc chemistry maybe, but not in biochemistry. Then what happens? Does it?
Well,
is it a challenge for you?
I think sciences are fine because they give you a scientific bent of mind. That curiosity going towards science, understanding the scientific phenomenon, all of that. So yes, sciences are fine. I'm not necessarily life sciences. Life sciences would be preferable, but
that's what I was saying.
Be okay.
Talking about which degree is preferable, I would definitely say being a doctor is definitely preferable, but what happens when you are a doctor and a medical communicator? Sometimes you sit back and wonder, am I really doing the right thing, or should I have been a clinician instead? I don't know.
Other thing is with doctors, I think they don't take criticism really well.
Oh, yes.
Shilpa and I, both of us are doctors. So what is your experience, Shilpa? Is it challenging to be a doctor and a medical communicator?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, you have to have conviction in your choices. I think that's the most important. I mean, I have never once felt that, I'm not a practicing clinician. I've never once thought about it. It was a choice I made. And where I am is exactly where I wanted to be. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. Pooja, you were mentioning about the courses. Now go ahead and tell us about the courses and, certifications available for those who want to be medical writers.
Yeah, so the ones that I wouldn't say I have done any course nicely. So I would like to mention here that when I started into medical writing, that was online. I was not in an active job at that time, and so I thought I will start medical writing. And Dr. Natasha Das was the first person I actually contacted, and she was available on the internet, and she was the only one I got under whose name medical writer was written. So I contacted
Sorry to jump in here. We must ask Natasha to make a list of the number of people that she in medical writing.
Yeah. So I always tell her that, and then I didn't do any courses, though I did join a course which I never properly finished. I did finish it eventually, but I wouldn't say, so I'm not naming the agency also. But yes, there are some good courses on Coursera which would give you an insight into scientific writing. So I am not saying that any course will prepare you for being a medical communicator, but there are several courses which get you ready to learn about or understand the nuances of writing science, because when we are writing science, we are also told not to plagiarize, we are also told not to copy paste, and then we know that we are writing facts which are existing everywhere. So when we are bringing out those facts on the table in the form of either a publication manuscript or a newsletter or a video script or a CME module, how to bring out the story in a way that it doesn't sound copied, still it sounds interesting, and it is also easy for the graphics person to convert it into a visual story as well. So those skills you can easily develop. I am not sure if there are any courses which would prepare you for being a medical communicator. Maybe Dr. Shilpa or Dr. Natasha can help me.
I totally agree with you. I mean, when I started out, there was nothing available.
Nothing.
There were regulatory writing courses available and certificate programs and diplomas, but nothing for this kind of communication that we are involved in. And even today, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't actually done a lot of research into looking for such courses, but I haven't heard of any such courses, formal courses that prepare you for a medical writer's job. But today there are so many resources available online. Like Pooja mentioned, Coursera has some courses, although I'm not aware of what they are, but I'm sure they have courses. There are medical writers associations, American Medical Writers Association, the European Medical Writers Association, which have resources on their websites. There is an International Society for Medical Publications Professionals, which does wonderful work in terms of organizing information, presenting it in webinars, promoting a lot of discussion between medical communicators globally. You could become members of ISMPP and access all the materials that's available. They provide a certification as well for to be a certified medical publications professional, which I think is really useful. But of course, it involves money. But there are lots of free programs, free webinars, free articles available. I'll put that down in the chat. There is Medcoms Networking. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it, but that has several webinars. It's got several sister sites. One of them talks about how to get started in Medcoms agency, how to prepare for the interviews, what do Medcoms agencies do. So kind of preparing you for a role in a Medcoms agency. So they have wonderful tips. And these are run by people who've been in the medical communications business for a very long time.
Yes. Networking is actually currently conducting weekly webinars on Medcom.
Yes.
So, yeah,
and they're very informative. They're very, very informative. I mean, I recently, I'm keen to look at a webinar. They talked about, they had medical communicators who had a medical communications agency background and then moved on to work in pharmaceutical companies. So how did they make that switch and what their experiences were? That would be a very interesting topic in terms of career progression. If you're interested in actually moving on to a pharmaceutical agency from a Medcoms agency, that might be a good webinar to see. And it's all free. So that's the best part. You can just, go onto the website and take a look. So wonderful resources out there if you're interested. But I don't think, and I don't necessarily think that a formal course is required. It's absolutely not required.
In fact, I could add here that, Indian Society for Clinical Research is also coming up with a lot of webinars these days. Earlier, they used to have only, pre-conference workshops on medical writing, but recently they've started having a lot of, medical communications webinars. Mostly, actually, I think Pooja and there was another girl with us from the pharma industry. So the three of us or four of us, we started off with the first publications workshop for ISCR. So ISCR has been conducting a few webinars recently in the Medcom field.
So there are lots of workshops organized by like Natasha and Pooja, which is, if I had access to those when I was starting out, that would have been really helpful. But
don't tell me how I started off.
I know, that was several years
before. People didn't even know what was Medcom.
Also, I think how many courses you do, how many webinars you do, when you start working, every project brings its own learnings, its own challenges. Every client brings their own, idiosyncrasies to the table, and you learn with every project that you work on. So no course, nothing will prepare you for what you are actually going to be doing.
So what are the soft skills, Shilpa, you would add? What are the soft skills one should possess? Courses are different thing, but soft skills.
So, to be a successful medical writer, I think the main thing is you need to have a scientific curiosity. You need to be self-motivated. Like I said, there are no courses available. So you need to be a sponge basically and soak in whatever you're learning. To this day, I learn something new every day. So I tell my colleagues, I tell my boss that there's something new that I learn every single day.
Yes.
And you have to be open to learning. You have to be open to receiving criticism and feedback. So interesting. You asked me this question earlier, Natasha, how I started off. So it was a happy accident meeting you. And then, I was on a break from my career in operations and healthcare operations. And I wanted to keep my brain stimulated. And Natasha, stepped in at the very opportune moment and got me involved in this. And I found that I liked it. And while I was still deciding, I got a chance to move to UK and upon exploring further, I joined a medical agency, a Medcom agency, as an associate medical writer. So that's where people usually start, and it was a steep learning curve. Although I had been a freelance writer for almost close to 2 years, When I joined as an associate medical writer, it was a steep learning curve, but I learned on the job. From the first day that I joined the company as an associate writer, I was writing stuff. I was writing stuff for my client. I was writing stuff for congresses and symposia, and there was feedback. The first document that I prepared came back completely red, and I almost sobbed. But now I'm at a point where I'm editing things for people. I'm reviewing things for people. So you have to be a sponge. You have to be open to criticism, open to receiving feedback, open to learning.
So here Shilpa, I would really like to add here that when we started off together, I mean, I started off in the late 90s, and then Shilpa and I worked on a couple of projects together. So we worked on a few projects. This was around 15 years back. But later on, when she moved to the UK, she was one of my clients at that time. I mean, She was editing what I was writing. So that's how you grow, right?
True.
So you never know where you will reach. It has to be a lot of hard work that you put in, a lot of sincerity in whatever you do, and then start learning.
Yeah. So basically, you should enjoy the writing bit. Even though I went into an MBBS, I always used to fight with my father when I was in the 12th grade that I want to be a writer. I want to, join St. Stephen's and do a, BA in English literature, because I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to write. But, parental pressure and all of that, parental expectations, I became a doctor. But I've always enjoyed writing. So that's one primary thing. You need to enjoy writing. You have to have attention to detail. You have to be able to tell a story. It's writing in a peer-reviewed journal. It may appear dry, but it tells a story. It has a format. So you need to be able to tell a story. You need to have good organizational multitasking skills. And of course, you need to be an excellent researcher. That's something that you need to do, research.
You need to be able to ask questions all the time. If you do a lot of research and find a lot of written material, don't just take it for granted that whatever is written in Lancet is the best thing. No, that's not there. You have to question everything that you read. And then
ready to find answers, and ready to find answers on your own. No one's gonna come and give you answers also.
Yeah, so that is how it is. So I think we've covered almost everything. And I think you've also told the audience about what your message is. Let's now take in questions from the audience. I think that would be a good thing. I wanted to ask about, how COVID has changed your life, but I think COVID has actually enhanced our writing skills, because we have been loaded with more work rather than having less work right now.
So COVID, I think, apart from the fact that, everything has become virtual, congresses and, client meetings, advisory boards, everything has become virtual. So you're working from home. Apart from that, a few other things that have got impacted is that, publication timelines have got really extended. Not just with the journal, but from the author's end as well. The publication timelines have got really extended. The authors are not coming back in time. And since I here work regionally, I have authors from different countries. So when things in Taiwan go bad, the authors from there don't come back to me, but everybody else does. And then when it's time for somebody else, Philippines is not doing very well. So the timelines are completely out of whack at the moment.
Yeah.
Also, the journals are kind of focusing on COVID related research. Yes. Most of the journals, I wouldn't say all of them, but most of them. So for the first time in my writing career, papers are coming back saying, we don't find this topic appropriate at the moment. And this is like, at least take it into the review process. And then they have like the standard format. This is nothing against the quality of your writing. The article seems this, but the topic is not of priority. So this is something that I have been facing a lot.
COVID has taken a priority in publications.
Yeah.
Talking about other forms of medical communication, I feel, we are doing a lot of webinars now.
Yeah.
Managing webinars, a lot of slides and all. I'm sure, Pooja, you're doing a lot of slides these days.
Oh, yes.
So that
I think after 2 years, I'll have a slide on every topic. You name the topic, I'll give you 5 minutes.
Yeah. So let's open the floor for questions. Anybody who has a question for any of us, just unmute yourself and start asking questions. Any questions?
Doesn't look like.
Yeah. We don't have any questions. Okay. So let's talk about, we've talked about what was the most interesting project that you did. Let's talk about what was the most challenging thing that you had to face. Challenging client. I mean, I'm not talking about challenging projects, but challenging client that you have to face.
No, Shilpa, you would go first.
Well, there are several challenging clients, and it's difficult to talk about them without, outing them. But some projects have been difficult because, for instance, one of the pharmaceutical companies was trying to bring a new product into the market. The product is established elsewhere, maybe in the US or the UK, but it's coming into this part of the world. So it comes with a lot of baggage from, the previous approvals. And that baggage is a little difficult to work with, because what works in the US or what is acceptable in the US or the UK is not really, it needs to be adapted to this environment, to these regulatory environments, or the people here. So I think that I find quite challenging.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the clients find it, the pharmaceutical companies find it challenging as well, working with something that comes with its own baggage.
Yeah, but we've all learned a lot from our clients also. Like I learned using referencing software way back in the early 2000 when one of my clients introduced that to me. I mean, one of the international clients introduced me to EndNote. That's when I learned the referencing software. You get to learn a lot from your clients also, because somebody somewhere else is using it. I'm not using that, right? So that's a benefit of having a good client also.
True.
Yeah. So anything else that you both want to add before? I mean, I don't see any questions. If there are any questions, we'll take those questions.
No, well, I think we've talked about almost.
Yeah, we've tried to cover almost everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll also put up the recordings on our different social media platforms. And if anyone has any queries, once these videos are put up on the social media archive videos, they can ask their questions in the comment box also, and we'll respond to them. And it's a good field. It's fun, it's challenging. One thing I want to tell everyone who wants to switch over from one profession to another, I get a lot of calls from people working in academics who want to shift to medical communications. I would like to tell them that because you are affected by publish or perish scenario over there, and you think that you're going to survive here, this is a profession that you survive on deadlines. Every day there is a deadline that you have to meet. Every day there is something new that you are researching about. So the challenges of every profession are unique to those professions. So do not make a switch just because you don't like the current profession. Try and understand what this profession is about. And if you think that you would love writing, if you are ready to deal with nasty, and I'm not saying that all clients, some clients are nasty, some clients are really helpful. So you have to have a very good interpersonal skill to be able to hold on to everything that is being said to you. Sometimes the feedback will be amazing. You will float 2 days on those feedbacks, and some days the feedbacks will be so bad that same day you will not want to continue in the field. So you have to be ready for the challenges of this profession also. And we kind of survive on deadlines and feedbacks. These are the two most critical aspects of this field, especially as a medical communicator, that you should be ready to take heads on. If you can do that, and if you love writing, you're most welcome. And we are all there to answer questions. I was helped by Dr. Natasha Das when I had no clue, and there was not enough information on Google also about medical writing. So I have imbibed this from her, that anyone who wants any help, who wants to ask anything about any aspect of the profession, please feel free to connect with me. I'll be there to help you out as much as I can.
Yeah, we will be there. All three of us will be there. Pooja,
So
I want to
Natasha, one
add-
question. One question. I mean, I don't know if anybody is interested, but where do medical writers actually work?
Yeah.
That's something I think might be useful. Not just in medical communication agencies. I mean, yes, medical writers and account managers do work in medical communication agencies, but apart from here, where can you find jobs? You can look at societies. A lot of healthcare societies hire medical writers. And maybe the designation is different. They may not be called medical writers or medical communicators. They may be called scientific writers, or they may have advisors. So they may have a different designation, but societies do hire medical writers. Contract research organizations hire medical writers. There are jobs, I don't know about India, but here there are jobs for writing, scientific writing in medical universities and medical schools. Then there are medical publishers like Elsevier, Wiley, they hire medical writers. There are government agencies also hire medical writers. The Ministry of Health has a lot of scientific writers, journals, and news outlets, news companies, which write healthcare-based materials.
Yeah, in fact, way back in 2005 or 6, I think I was managing a couple of websites for Deccan Chronicle. So there are news agencies who, hire medical writers also for a daily news update.
True.
Right? They have, medical news sites also. They run medical news websites. Yeah, so that is there. Then you could also work with individual doctors. There are individual doctors who have, personal writers with them. And so that is also there. Then I've had a medical communicator friend who's worked with a hospital. So there's this hospital in India where she was working as a medical writer, where she used to, facilitate the publication of articles for all the stakeholders. There are all the doctors in that hospital. So that's also there. Anything else, Pooja? That
of course, pharmaceutical companies also hire medical writers.
Pharmaceutical.
To just emphasize or reiterate what Pooja said, it's a good field to be in today. I mean, it has evolved immensely over time, and it's a great field to be in. It's still a niche field, I would say, writing per se. There are specialist recruitment agencies which recruit for medical communication jobs. So that's a revenue that you could look at. And once you are in Medcom's industry, I mean, not just agency, but working in medical communications, depending upon how ambitious you are and how steep of a career path you want, whether it is in account management, project management, or writing, you can go places. You could work in medical communication agencies for several years and then switch to working in a pharmaceutical, company as an advisor or a writer or a medical manager, medical publications manager. So there is a path. It can be as steep as you want it to be, or as laid back. I have had a relatively laid back career. I mean, I've not pushed myself primarily because there are other interests that I have, and this role has, I mean, this job, my last 15 years have allowed me to develop interests outside of work and pursue them as well. So depending on how ambitious you are, you could. So there is a nice career path in medical communications.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So right now there's this internet which is a big boon for all of us. When I started off with my first medical communication project, it was for editing a text. I mean a handbook. And then I moved into editing different material for your company, your agency, Pooja. I mean, I was doing that for you.
Yes.
All right. So you were not there.
But I've heard from you, yes.
Yeah, my first projects were with IGCP. So that was a time when I was not so internet savvy. Yeah, internet was there. I had a computer, but I was not so internet savvy. I used to sit down with huge textbooks and, flip through pages to collect the information, match it with the information that was there in the handbook, and then edit it. And I had to learn the proofreading signs and all that. But that's not required right now. Now it's much more easier than it was in those days, but now it's much more easier, and you have people to guide you.
Yes,
That's the major improvement that's been there. And there are hundreds of medical communicators in India itself who can help you. I mean, it's not just the three of us here. There are hundreds of medical communicators now. There are companies which have 40, 50 medical communicators in their team. So that's grown that much. Yeah. I think we've had a good session. Anybody who, even if you don't have a question, if there is a feedback, something else that you want to add to this, you're most welcome.
Hi, this is Dr. Rajshekhar. I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, this is regarding the medical communications. How do you acquire clients to work with? I mean,
are you
You're asking for a trade secret.
so I'm currently working with Sun Pharma as a.
Welcome.
Hi, this is Dr. Rajshekhar. I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, this is regarding the medical communications. How do you acquire clients to work with? I mean,
are you
You're asking for a trade secret.
so I'm currently working with Sun Pharma as a manager, global pharma.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually basically a medical reviewer, but I have a lot of interest in writing as well. I was working as a medical writer before I switched to this job. I was into aggregate reports writing.
Yeah. So we told you who all could be, the stakeholders in medical communication. You could reach out to any of them. I mean, you don't get clients just if I say that there's a pharma company which you could opt for. So you're talking about working for Sun Pharma. Why don't you ask Sun Pharma themselves if they have any writing projects? Pharmaceutical companies also, they outsource a lot of writing to freelance writers. So maybe you could try there. You could try at agencies, and then you could try at certain societies and agencies like WHO and UN have a lot of writing to do also.
I think if you're looking for a full-time job as a writer, there are several avenues, but I don't think that's what you're asking. I think you're asking for, you're working for Sun Pharma, but you'd like to do writing on the side.
Is that what you're asking?
No, actually, I have a vision to work as a autonomous medical communications agency by myself.
Okay.
So I would suggest you associate yourself with somebody like Dr. Natasha, somebody who's senior. No, this is a serious suggestion. I mean, not Dr. Natasha herself, but there are several established medical writers who run their own agencies or who, do workshops. So maybe build a portfolio of your work and associate yourself with one of them for a few years. It won't happen within a year or two. I mean, it'll take time for you to build your credentials to get to a point where you can have your own, establish your own agency. So I think the best way for you to be, to associate yourself with a mentor who could then progress your career in that direction. I mean, this is just an idea, but I think it might be helpful.
Yeah. Also, since you are working with a pharma, I'm sure you would have developed a lot of contacts, during your professional career. So what you can also do is, if you have information as to what therapy areas or what molecules they are working on, and if you can get out with a proposal, a presentation for them, reach out to them, either individually or through somebody you would like to be associated with, because I feel this is the best way, as Dr. Shilpa said, to be associated with somebody who's working into it and then work from them, learn the tricks of that trade, and then go solo rather than suddenly starting off solo. But if you think that you have enough, because this is also a profession of networking. If you have a lot of networking, if you have a lot of contacts, you know who to reach out to, because people will only listen to you or will only give your presentation their precious 2 minutes if they know you, if they think that you have done, you know, some good job over the years, they have seen your work, or they have seen the work of the person you are associated with. So either of these two you need to have, and then once you know that what the person you are trying to target is doing, or what you can build, like I said in the beginning, you will have to do an assessment. Based on the assessment you will get some insights. Based on the insights you will develop some plans, and based on those plans you will propose that these are the things that you know you can do to target your audiences, whether it be nurses, whether it be pharmacists, whether it be hospital staff, patients, doctors, whosoever. So it's important to either associate yourself with someone, or if you have your own contacts, then you can go ahead with life. But a portfolio is needed.
And once physical meetings are normalized, you could go back to, you know, you attending conferences and workshops and getting to meet people who have been in this field. They may be doing some projects and they may actually be looking for a writer to help them. So you could ask them. That also helps. Any other questions?
So basically, networking is the key to.
Yes,
definitely.
Thanks
to
a lot.
to get projects.
Yes, unless you join a company as a writer and go from there. I started off as an associate medical writer and, you know, went from there. So here in my company in Singapore, we do have associate medical writers who progress to medical writers, senior medical writers, and editorial leads. So that's a career path you could take. And then I'm sure, I mean, I've been here for 6 years, but I know of people who've done that and then established their own agency. So that's the other alternative path.
Yeah, because you can't have best of both worlds. You can't be a writer and you can't be the person who gets the business as well. Someone will have to get business and someone will have to write. It's just not possible to do everything. So that you will have to think and, you know.
I think Natasha has experience of doing both.
Yeah. Oh, I forget.
I'm actually finding it tough with you know, getting clients. Raj, if you have clients in mind, do get in touch with me.
I actually keep telling her that you should be working, you know, much more than you do, but she's like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, definitely, ma'am. Looking forward to have more conversations with you all, so that maybe I can learn a few more things.
Sure, thanks.
Stay connected through LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are